Hello, and welcome to Message in the Middle with Marianne. We all know that life is hard, right? It's messy, it's unpredictable, but it can be wonderful all at the same time. My hope is that we can take a deep dive into self-development topics and explore life's lessons through book clubs, conversations, and interviews. And together, we can uncover the lessons that others have already learned to help us navigate this crazy, wonderful ride called life. Hello and welcome to Message in the Middle. I'm your host, Marianne, and today we're diving into a topic that's a listener favorite, probably because it hits close to home for so many of us. We're talking about the complicated relationship we have with food, our bodies, and the stories we've been told about both. And my guest, Jane McGuinness, knows this terrain all too well. Jane's a registered clinical counselor, a mother of 3, and the author of Always Hungry, a memoir about emotional eating, body image, and reclaiming self-worth. She brings both professional insight and hard-earned personal wisdom to the table, sharing what it really took to lose over 100 pounds, navigate divorce, and raise 3 children, one autistic, one transgender, while pushing back against the constant noise of diet culture and body shaming. We're talking about what it means to make peace with food and with ourselves, how to age with authenticity and acceptance, and how to quiet that ever-critical inner voice that keeps so many of us always hungry for something more. Jane, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Marianne. It's lovely to be here, and thank you for having me.
Of course. As I said, this is a topic that everybody loves to listen in on because it seems to affect so many of us.
Absolutely. It's universal.
I was hoping to maybe kick us off by talking about Always Hungry. So the book, having a title like that, it would be fairly easy to assume the book is solely about dieting or how you conquered weight loss. But I think that's not the whole story. If you had to sum it up, what would you say it's about?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for the question, because the title really does speak to so much more, because on this journey of self-discovery and healing that has taken decades, I discovered it was never food that I was hungry for. I mean, I was constantly emotionally eating and snacking, so rarely did I feel physical hunger. But when I got to the root cause of the disordered eating and what was really going on, I needed to heal. I was seeking peace and calm. And then now, of course, I'm hungry for life, for adventure, for travel, for experiences. There was so much more, that was a play. And absolutely, the memoir is definitely far more than a case of how did I gain weight and lose weight. I mean, really, it speaks to what I looked back on and recognized was, and still is, a transformative journey. I overcame an anxiety disorder. I was raising 3 small children. My husband was always busy working, and it was, I was at that time just hungry for 5 minutes to myself, I think, which every parent with a stay-at-home parent with young children knows that feeling all too well. And then, of course, we go back to my childhood and, unhappily married parents and, the hunger that children are seeking there when home life is somewhat dysfunctional. So
there's a lot there.
Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, that was a piece of it. And then the divorce and navigating motherhood and going back to school and discovering what it's like to be in your late 30s and early 40s and single again. That's hence the whole Tinder chapter. I mean, that's just that's just a whole
an adventure in itself.
Yeah, that could have been an entire book. Absolutely.
There are definitely some out there like that.
Yeah. You could definitely do another book entitled. There's no shortage of horrific.
Well, I know all of this is, like you said, it's a journey, right? There's a whole bunch of pieces that go into it. Yeah. You are somebody today, looking back on it, who really pushes back on the whole thought process that people can be measured by a scale or the space they take up. I mean, that's just something you push back on. But
Hmm.
Is there anything specifically that stands out as a pivotal moment in your own perspective shifting around that? Because I would imagine for many years,
Hmm.
you did let the scale sort of feed into your worth.
Mm. Oh, absolutely.
Was there a pivotal moment in when that changed for you?
You know, what was interesting was that I had wanted to reclaim my health for a long time. And what I found incredibly sobering was that as I began to naturally heal my relationship with food and the disordered eating, and I addressed the emotional issues that were at the root of that, but what happened was as I began to lose weight, what was incredibly sad was that in society, I was treated far better by everybody.
Mm.
And because, I've kept the weight off now for a decade, and that was another reason I wanted to write the story of how and why, but also the story of the discrimination then and the slim privilege I have now, because I know very well that I'm treated well now because society values our external form, not the soul within. And that was just incredibly sad. And so as this journey continued, and I'm quite addicted to exercise now. I mean, I love skiing and biking and hiking. And so I really enjoy that. And I love to stay fit for those reasons. And I feel great mentally too, of course, as much as physically. But what's incredibly wrong and sad is that now that I have this slim privilege, I just realize if someone hasn't lived in both bodies, they're not maybe not aware that they have that privilege. And if you're in a larger body, as I was, somebody in a smaller body has no idea of the daily discrimination and the judgment and the cruelty that people experience. I know I experienced when I was in a larger body. And so, yeah, that was another reason I had to write this story, because and it still does make me very, very angry and upset, really, really frustrated. And I thought, okay, I'm going to speak out about this because people aren't aware. And my new friends, people here aren't aware that I used to be in a larger body. So sometimes in the past they'd make comments about somebody larger, thinking it was funny. And of course it wasn't funny. And I had to sit with that and think, wow, okay, it's time to speak out now.
Yeah.
I need to say something because of my lived experience in both bodies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What do you think are some of the most common misconceptions?
Mm,
Because they're out there, as you said. I mean, this is for those that have lived it. It's so obvious
hmm
that this bias exists. But if you haven't lived
Oh,
you don't
exactly.
necessarily realize it. To your point,
Yeah.
from your observations, is there anything that really stands out as such a misconception about obesity?
Oh, there's so many. Absolutely. When I think back, I mean, gosh, I mean, all of the studies show that, a person in a larger body is deemed like less intelligent, they're judged as being lazy and, in lacking willpower. I mean, it goes on and on. I mean, they're disadvantaged when it comes to employment promotions. I mean, the studies are just absolutely horrific if you look at the
Yeah.
data. And yeah, it's absolutely not okay. And, myself, I'm aware that, I mean, my weight challenges began, with comfort eating as a child, unhappy parents, it was food absolutely became love, as Janine Roth wrote about years ago in her brilliant work, for me. And then I had to get to that point of recognizing, okay, this is a poor man's substitute. This is not love. But I was seeking comfort. I was seeking an escape. And for a lot of people, there is very real psychological factors at play. I mean, rare is the person who is just actually always physically
Yeah.
hungry. I know I
I
was.
agree with that.
But yeah, I think we fail to see the person, the human, and recognize that person. And I respect some people are very happy and comfortable in larger bodies and embrace that. I mean, I was lacking energy. I wasn't feeling good about myself. I really wanted to, ski with my kids and be more active and feel good doing it and not be tired after an
Yeah.
hour. I wanted to be able to live fully with them and, participate in those kind of activities. Um, yeah, absolutely. But there's just so much judgment, so many assumptions, and we haven't walked a mile in someone else's shoes. You don't know whether they're struggling with huge trauma, whether it's, big T trauma or small T trauma, like, my own childhood experience. Yeah, it just occurred to me, okay, none of us have the right to judge another human. And, why don't we see the soul and not the external form?
Hmm.
Yeah, all kinds of horrendous assumptions about somebody when they're in a larger body. I mean, there are so many factors at play when it comes to obesity. I mean, gosh, the culture that we're surrounded in this ridiculous society that was full of ultra processed foods. I mean, oh my gosh, don't even get me started on that. I mean, it's genetics at play. There's just so much at play. It's multifaceted. There's so many pieces to the puzzle, and it's just way too simplistic, and it's incredibly wrong to look at somebody and just say, well, you're just lazy and lacking willpower.
When you were saying all that, I went to the fact that you have neurodivergence and a transgender person in your life.
Yeah, in the same boat, like it's the same eldest child.
And you're very open about this, so it's not like I'm bringing up a taboo subject, but I have to wonder, did you get more empathetic and more open to recognizing sort of that misaligned judgment once you had a child that had to deal with some of these? Because I imagine, and tell me if I'm way off, but I imagine that your child has gone through some judgment of their own.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine that's not the case, unfortunately. I wish I could.
Absolutely.
So I wonder, did you come to the realization that it shows up in a lot of different places, I guess I'm trying to say, and did it change your mind at all once you were dealing with your own child going through any of that?
Oh, certainly. I think even perhaps subconsciously, before I realized. Yeah. And, even within my own extended family, who have been wonderfully accepting and supportive, but also initially just trying to better understand. My eldest is non-binary and was, diagnosed very late. So, I mean, the judgments that I felt as a parent, when my young child was struggling and neurodivergent, and we didn't know that they were on the spectrum at that point. They sort of slipped through the cracks, which does happen despite testing. So they were only diagnosed at 17. So there's all of those years, when you see the child having the meltdown, and a lot of people just assume, okay, well, you're just a bad parent, you're not in control of your child, which is horrific and revolting.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And then I started to watch in high school when my eldest came out, and they were navigating these incredibly difficult times. And yeah, I saw a lot of kindness, but I also saw a lot of cruelty and judgment, certain areas when we're out and about in public. And it just breaks your heart. And it absolutely has made me more aware of just how we can be cruel and judgmental
Judgy.
without even realizing. I think people do it sometimes without stepping back. We just other each other so quickly,
Yes.
in a box over there, and you're different, so you're weird,
Yeah.
Why can't we just all just find and give love and kindness and compassion? So that's a message in the book that I want to share, and am sharing more and more, and as I continue to write, because I think we need to shout it from the rooftops. Some people are not getting the message, and they need to know. Yeah.
I do think, I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on this and go down this path, but I do think with the non-binary, I think for some of us, I'll say our age-ish or older, a lot of times I think, because I have experience with somebody as well in the family, and I think at first, a lot of times it really just is something that's different, something that we're not used to, something that we've never lived with or been part of, and just even retraining your brain to not say he or she, to say they.
Yeah.
Like those are things that they just don't come as naturally, I think, to us later in life as the kids coming up now, who it's just what they know, right?
Exactly.
So there's a small window there for education. So to your point, when you get out there and you're talking about these different topics, I like to think that we're touching somebody that maybe can hear something that will just slightly open the door for them to think about it a little differently.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, I know it takes time, even with the vocabulary.
Yeah.
I sometimes accidentally misgender my other two because I say they for all of them, because my brain is just used to that now.
Because it takes effort to do that, to switch your brain to do that. So yeah, once you get there,
exactly.
That's so interesting.
And they're great about it. But yeah, it's I think essential is just the need for us all just to get back to being kind.
Yeah.
And loving at the end of the day. That's all we all need. There's a lot of kindness and acceptance. And yeah, I think the younger generation is amazing. I see my children's friends and they're just phenomenal. I think, yeah, the kids of today, that gives me hope.
Me too.
There's
Me too.
oh,
Well, I want to go back for a minute though, because we were talking about, your journey and sort of where you started to where you got to, and
mhm.
trying to change the dialogue around judgment. And it makes me think of, especially in midlife, I feel like many of us get to that point where we want to love the person and the body we're in, but we also want to change.
Yeah.
We also want to, create something new, something different.
Mhm.
Talk to me a little bit about how you navigated, because certainly you were on a spectrum of that for a while, of going from one to the other. It didn't happen overnight. And I think it can be an
Yeah.
and.
Mhm.
We can appreciate the body we're in today and the life we have today.
No, absolutely.
And we can want something different.
Mhm.
But I think sometimes that's hard to sort of navigate. What's your experience with that?
That's a great question. I mean, it's interesting, like looking back for myself. I mean, the journey was, as you say, it didn't happen overnight. I mean, getting to the root of the emotional eating, like what I was hungry for, which leads to the title of the book. It was for me very much a case of figuring that out. And then as I reflect, it's a paradox, but only when we truly can accept ourselves, we then change. I love
Yeah.
Mark's work on radical acceptance. I mean, that's, one of my favorite books. And so I realized that by accepting and just recognizing where I was and the challenges I was sitting with, that allowed me to start to make positive changes. And for myself, it has been a journey. And I mean, it's a lifelong journey. I mean, I still have days where I struggle too. And I find myself in the kitchen and I know I'm anxious or upset about something. But then I look at, okay, the tools in my toolkit, like what do I need right now? And most of the time it'll work. And I can ask myself, do I need a walk? Do I need a hug? Do I need to phone a friend? Like, what is it? Am I physically hungry? But yeah, of course, way back when, there was so many other things at play, often when we're just completely dysregulated in the body, we're under stress, the sympathetic nervous system kicks in. And it's a case of just seeking comfort and trying to feel safe within the body, trying to nurture, or where they're escaping, like so many different elements that play into emotional eating and disordered eating, why so many of us, wind up with these challenges.
Was there any tool specifically that you credit to helping you the most in identifying
Mhm.
what you really were hungry for? Because I do think that you hear that very often, like people haven't just gotten in touch with the thing. They still haven't found it. And I think that's probably the hardest part,
Mhm.
is figuring out what the thing is.
Yeah,
What do you think helped you the most get to that? And I know the thing could be many things, but you know what I'm saying?
definitely. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Janine Roth's books were incredibly helpful because I think when I discovered her work for the first time, I really began to ask myself, like, what's actually going on here? Like, what is driving this emotional, this comfort eating when I'm not physically hungry? The more I speak to people, I find that it's universal. People will continue to eat when they're unhappy, when they're sad, when they're full. Their stomach is not seeking, not needing any kind of nourishment. But yeah, there's so much more at play. So for myself, like getting to the bottom of that, like what was driving this emotionally was key. And I don't believe I would have kept off the weight as I have for a decade had I not made peace with that and figured that out. I think, for permanent change to happen, there needs to be, of course, permanent, healthy, sustainable changes. But we can't ignore the psychology at play. Otherwise, it's just a temporary
Yeah.
fix. I mean, we can all restrict and, go to the gym every day and, but if we're not really addressing the root causes and the problems, I know for myself, I couldn't have made these changes permanent. And yeah, I wouldn't be where I am today, sort of speaking out now. So I think that's key. So yeah, I definitely credit Janine Roth and yeah, it was a gradual process. And then, like James Clear, Atomic Habits, I mean his brilliant work on those really small, consistent changes over time. So now, I mean, walking, I mean, I'd always, of course, been active as a child, and then the teenage years hit and the comfort eating and, unhappy parents, all the rest of it. And so, this food very quickly became comfort, and then the weight starts to go on. And then it's sort of a downward spiral because then you lack confidence. I didn't feel as confident social settings. And so it's, yeah,
Snowballs. Yeah.
exactly. But I suppose the opposite happened when I did start to walk. Now I meditate every day, try and stretch, even if it's not a huge amount of time for yoga. Just moving the body and reconnecting somatically with the body was huge too. So a lot of pieces to the puzzle. And then I love to cook. So just getting back to basics in terms of, real food and trying to cook from
Yeah.
scratch as often as possible. And the path of moderation, which is why my Substack is All Things Moderation. I
Yeah.
really advocate, the middle ground. I don't believe in ridiculous diets. I don't believe in any kind of crazy, anti-sugar, anti-anything, like anti-carb. Of course, I just try and have everything in moderation and don't go crazy with it. But, it's balance and taking a
Yeah.
walk. I mean, really, I walk a lot. I always have. And so it's that consistency of just trying to, just try and do something every day, even if it's small. And then I feel better, which of course, mentally we feel better. We make better food choices. And also I don't deprive myself. I don't believe that makes any sense whatsoever. If I'm
It's not sustainable. I
no.
think it's not sustainable if you go from one of the end of the spectrum to the other. You have to stay in the middle. I agree with you completely.
Oh my gosh, exactly. I'm absolutely still a foodie. I mean, I love good food. I love Italian food. And
Yeah.
if I'm really craving an almond croissant, I'm going to have it. It's just,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's the balance. I think I mentioned that in my book. I'll take a big hike. If I feel like that, I'm going to enjoy it. But yeah, it's balance. I'm
Yeah.
not having one, every day, 3 times a day, so it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think everybody's, hopeful that somebody's going to come on and somebody's going to write a book or somebody's going to have a message that, they found the magic bullet. And
Mm,
all of the things you just said are not to sound harsh, but they're not new, right? So it's the message there is it
exactly.
takes the work. But I do think
Yeah.
getting back to your original answer to one of my questions a couple back is
Mhm.
you got to do the work to really figure out what your drivers are and why you keep going back looking for something because there's something there. And I
Exactly.
think until you do that,
Yeah.
you're going to keep going back.
Oh, it's so true. I mean, the emotion, the psychological piece, like the drivers, those absolutely, I don't believe anyway. We can't make permanent, sustainable change without addressing the root emotionally, the issues that are at play.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, in a way, the message is somewhat simplistic, but it's also just the reality of what I've learned because as I say to people now, like common sense is not that common and it doesn't sell diet books, which is why there's all
Yeah.
ridiculous diet books out there because they don't sell. If somebody wrote a book and said, well, just take a walk and cook more vegetables and
Yeah.
yeah, that's not going to sell. There's not money to be made in that. There aren't enough, there aren't the potions and the ridiculous,
Yeah.
this and do this 10 times a day and, drink something under the light of a full moon. It's just ridiculous
Yeah.
because everybody is looking for a quick fix. And the reality is healing the body, I learned anyway, takes time. Absolutely takes time. I mean, we know more about the microbiome now. And without realizing I'd healed my microbiome, I had as I just began to just really, as much as possible, eat whole unprocessed foods, and cooking from scratch constantly, which is obviously more filling, tastes better, And so I healed my body, but it takes years. And some people they want a quick fix. They want, a month from now to drop 50 pounds, but it doesn't work like that. Well, if it's certainly not sustainable.
Yeah. And I think it's worth saying that it's simple. We can list the bullets of all the things, the pillars of things, but it's not easy to do, practically speaking, when you're trying to really change your life. You have to really
Yeah.
consistently do those things over and over and over and over and over. That's not easy.
No, absolutely right. And it's consistency. And it's
Yeah.
also then it's determination. And I guess myself, I knew a long time ago, okay, like this, I'm going to make this a permanent change. I had, 3 very little children, and I thought, okay, myself as a mother, how do I want to show up for them? What kind of
Yeah.
behaviors do I want to model? And I realized the trajectory I was on was going to shorten my life. I may not have been around to see my grandchildren, and that was completely unacceptable for me. I thought, okay,
Mm.
I need to do something here. Yeah, but it's absolutely, I think like anything in my experience in life that's worth having, it's hard to obtain and it does take hard work, but it's absolutely doable. And I think when we keep going and we make small sustainable changes, yeah, we can start to heal our body and our relationship with food. I mean, the diet noise, diet culture, it's just crazy and
Hmm.
it's deafening. It's absolutely deafening. So getting back to just trusting our own judgment and thinking, okay, well, yeah, what's common sense here? And the food noise and it is incredibly hard when we're surrounded in society by these ridiculous messages and everything we see, on Instagram and all of the nonsense. I mean, there's just so much noise around it and so much pressure. It's no wonder people are overwhelmed and don't know what to do or eat.
Yeah. You said food noise, and it's
Mm.
such a big topic these days with all of the GLP-1s and people saying that it really
Yeah.
makes the difference for them because they don't
Mhm.
have the food noise and that inner dialogue for somebody that's listening that hasn't experienced that. It's chatter that's there for a lot of people nonstop.
Yeah.
The minute you wake up to the minute you go to bed,
Mhm.
minute you fall asleep, really, there's that whole dialogue around what are you going to have
Yeah.
next? What can you have? What can't you have? What should you have? What shouldn't you have? What's in the cupboard calling your name? What's in the refrigerator calling your name? All those things. Did that shift for you?
Yeah, that's actually it's a great question because as you were saying that, I was reminded of the fact that what I learned was that I mean I do love food. I'm a foodie, but I had to figure out, okay, what else brings joy? We need to find things that bring joy that are non-food related because when we're like you say, when we're just constantly consumed with what am I allowed to eat next? How many calories in there are in that? Oh, can I have that? Oh no, I can't have that. I'm going to be good today or I've been bad today. All of that we tell ourselves. When we're consumed with that, then it can occupy, as you said, our entire day. And what we're not taking a minute to think, okay, well, what else could I be doing that is non-food related that brings joy. Like for example, behind me, I'm working on a puzzle with my middle child. I've got other hobbies. I mean, of course, I'm a writer, so I love to read. But other than outdoor activities, I started learning Italian. I mean, I still love to cook. I took up mountain biking. I quilt. Like I think people need to figure out, okay, what else, spending time with friends and family, what else can you fill your day with that brings joy that isn't food related? Because we can just become so very obsessed with it.
Mm,
I'm absolutely obsessed. And I mean, the hunger for sure is there physically. And I know myself, I can only speak for myself, not as a doctor, but just with my own lived experience. I mean, if I don't get enough protein or enough fiber, I mean, I find fiber fills me up in protein. So I do make sure I get enough of both of those. And then the day typically goes well. Of course um, I'm human and, if I'm on holidays and I'm a little out of balance, well, that's okay. So I think self-compassion is incredibly important. I'm not going to berate myself, if I have a week away and I'm just not feeling
yeah.
quite as energetic, making choices that I would typically make. But yeah, I think especially as, we navigate a certain age as women, I know that getting enough protein and yeah, there are certain things that we need to be really mindful of. So that's helpful. Otherwise, I will crave simple carbs
Yeah.
and sugar. And I know that's my body's way of saying, okay, like what do we need more of? So fiber, like lots of fruit and vegetables I fill up on. But yeah, just try and also just balance life and every day with, okay, what's going to bring joy so I'm not in my head constantly thinking, oh, what's for lunch? What am I
Yeah.
having?
Yeah. You're filling it up with other things.
Yeah, that bring joy and yeah, happiness, fun.
Well, speaking of joy and happiness and fun and holiday, because you said that
Mhm.
word, this will likely air just before the holidays. So I thought that we
Nice.
could maybe talk about a couple of things that tend to creep up around the holidays for many of us.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I mean, one of them being that for many of us, food is just a huge role gathering, eating, cooking, snacking, indulgence, all the things
Yeah,
tend to
yeah.
come in around the holidays. So
Hmm.
I'm curious, how did that shift for you
Hmm.
after you really revamped your own transformation?
Yeah.
Did anything change in your the way you celebrated and
Um,
whether you gathered and all of those
yeah, I think
things?
absolutely. I think the tool that I try and use on Christmas Day and every day is really around um just practicing and focusing on that interoceptive awareness. So I do try and eat intuitively. If I wake up and I'm super hungry, then I'll make sure I have eggs, get some protein for brekkie with, some fruit, vegetables, whatever else I'm doing, tomato, spinach, like banana, whatever I feel like. But I also, especially at a time like when there's family around and there's just constantly food out and everybody's snacking, I make sure I check in with my body.
Mm,
There's some of those grounding techniques, you push your feet on the floor, you really feel like slow down the breathing and really tap in and feel in my stomach, like what's going on? Like, am I full? Am I physically hungry? Am I just perfectly happy and not, because when we get quiet and listen, we can hear, like we know. I think there's an intuitive wisdom.
yeah.
Our body knows what we need. And so if I've had a big Christmas lunch and I know I'm still full, that evening in Australia, often it's a midday or, 1 or 2 in the afternoon meal. So if I'm being honest, I mean, by the evening in the past, of course, that everybody would be getting out leftovers, they'd still be eating and drinking. And, you wouldn't really, there was no for myself anyway, like no interoceptive awareness. Like it was like, oh, that looks delicious. I'm going to have some, without checking in to see like, what does my stomach want right now?
Yeah.
And so that's what I attempt to do. And I mean, I'm human, so it doesn't always work. I'm not going to lie, but I try most of the time. I can slow down and say, okay, like, yeah, am I hungry here? Or if I eat that, am I going to feel uncomfortable? Because what I've learned is that if I do overeat on Christmas Day or any other day, then I'm robbing myself of the chance to just feel good and feel comfortable after enjoying food. And that took years to learn that it actually doesn't feel good afterwards if I've eaten too much and I've got a tummy ache the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not perfect. So yeah, there are times when it all goes sideways. And
Of
then I take a big
course.
walk and I try and practice self-compassion, and realize, okay,
Yeah.
I'm human. And yeah, and it is hard when there's, oh my gosh, it's all there and it's delicious and the wine's poured and yeah.
All of it.
Exactly. So it's definitely it's a lifelong journey. No question. There are still challenging days, but I would encourage anybody, around the holidays when there is a lot of food around, just slowing down and just asking yourself, like, am I hungry? Because you might be, but you also may not
Might
be.
not.
Your body's
Yeah.
phone up
Check in.
saying, yeah, like actually I'm kind of full or no, yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious if you dealt with or have seen this phenomenon where, especially when people come together that haven't seen each other for a
Mm,
long time, which typically happens on the
yeah.
holidays, and you might have this aunt, grandmother, sister,
Mm,
whatever, that's either, oh, you look great. Did you lose weight? Or, oh, did you? Inevitably, the subject of body and how your
yeah,
body looks in that moment
yeah,
comes up.
absolutely.
Any thoughts around navigating that? Because I imagine that you dealt with some of that in that range of your journey of, yeah. So,
Oh, definitely. There's so much judgment, and it speaks to our preoccupation as a society with the external form, with
yeah,
everybody's body. And I've
yeah,
long maintained, like, it's actually somebody else's body is none of your business. It's really not. Oh, I had so many comments. I mean, in the past it was, well, you need to stop eating, you're having too much. And then it was the pendulum swung. And then people would say, well, don't lose too much weight. You need to make sure you're eating enough. And then they would try and force food on me because they were worried. And then there would be the comments like, oh, you've kept the weight off. Oh, well, there was just a barrage of comments because everybody feels they have the right to comment. And it's just outrageous. And of course, it's I think sometimes people do it without any awareness. Sometimes they can be genuinely thinking they're being helpful, but of course it's not. It's hurtful, it's offensive, and it hasn't been asked for. Yeah, I think a lot of people just don't realize they can be quite insensitive when they are making these comments, and then they're so loaded and they're so damaging. I mean, it's incredibly toxic
yeah,
to judge anybody, whether you're commenting on weight loss or gain. I mean, it's just no one else's business. I think we really need to remember that to keep, My mother always said, if you can't say anything nice, don't say
Yes.
anything. And I think when it comes to bodies, other people's physical form,
Just
we
don't
just
even.
have to absolutely keep our
Yeah.
opinions to ourselves because it's just not appropriate to share them.
I agree with you completely. And I think it's a great point that you had to experience it on both ends
Yeah.
because it just goes to show, I mean, you can't win. You were too heavy, you were too thin, no matter what you did. But really, it was nobody's business what was going on with you as far as
Yeah.
your body and the way it looked. So I
Mm,
think it's a great point to just point
yeah.
out to people.
Oh my gosh. And it's crazy. And you know what I also find baffling? I mean, I've been at a weight I'm very happy with, I'm comfortable with where my body's at. And I've been at a stable weight for a long time now, but some people will still try and push food onto me because they're worried. And I say, well, you don't take an alcoholic bar and push alcohol on them. I mean, I am a recovering, emotional eater who was obviously very, very in a much bigger body, a couple of decades ago. So it just feels so inappropriate.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, you really can't win. The minute if hypothetically I gained 10 pounds, I mean, I guarantee there would be people in my life that would make comments and they would be judging. It's just, yeah, you can't win. I mean, I just wish we would all just settle down.
Yeah.
We're all different body sizes and shapes. And for me, it's about, okay, do I have energy? Do I feel good? Do I feel well? And making the choices I do. I have energy to hike with my kids and ski with them, and I wake up every morning with energy, and that's what's important to me. Far less than, okay, how do I look, when I leave the house.
I think that's such a good perspective because I think we do have to shift our own thoughts because we probably can't control all
Yeah.
those people around us. So, I mean, what you just said is a great perspective for somebody to have for themselves so that if, somebody comes at them with something, they can just stop and reflect. And I'm not going to let this person
Yeah.
get to me because, I can play with my kids or I'm working on it or I'm where I need to be, whatever the
Yeah.
shift is. But you have to have a prepared perspective that you can take when somebody says something like that because we are all human and it does hurt. It does hurt.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, that's where I think Tara Brach's radical acceptance is just,
Yeah.
it continues to be so incredibly helpful and powerful in my life because I'll just accept, okay, this is who they are,
Yes.
If uncle or auntie whoever or grandmother whoever has said this, like they're probably never going to change. So just accepting, okay, that is who they are. They can keep their opinions over there and I can smile and nod politely, but I don't take it on anymore. And of course, 20 years ago I did. I had anxiety and oh my goodness, I would spiral. It was so hurtful.
Yeah.
But now I recognize, no, like those are your opinions. Thank you. You can keep them over there. And yeah, so there's, a lot of self-help books were read in the last couple of decades, let me tell you, and are still read.
And it's a boundary, right? It's a self-preservation boundary that, okay, maybe we'll mix with them on the holidays because it's important to mom or whatever, but I'm not going to take it to heart to what they say. They can have their opinion. So I think those kind of conversations, and the reason I bring it up is I think those kind of conversations with ourselves, again, getting in touch with ourselves are important to have before you get in that moment. So you're prepared and you sort of know how to protect yourself from getting sucked in.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's a lot. It can be a lot.
No, I agree. Otherwise, we're taking that negative energy.
Yeah.
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 Definitely.
Well, as we get past the holidays, I'm going to kind of bring us to January and this whole mentality of sort of, new year, new you. What are we going to do to fix ourselves this year? The numbers for people that go to the gym or start diets, they're staggering in January because everybody thinks, this is it. This is when I'm going to start.
Exactly.
What do you say to that? What do you think about that? Like, how do you tell people that you're working with or, advising not to get in the mix of that and not to spiral in January? Like, what's your feedback around that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question too, because you're right. It's absolutely every January, everybody, it goes out, buys the latest diet books. And I think what happens is I think people they jump in and they try and change everything all at once. And it's not realistic and sustainable.
Yeah.
So I think that's really the biggest problem. And I think when it comes to wanting to make make a change. If you're wanting to maybe drop a few pounds, just have more energy, or maybe wanting to lose a lot more. I know in my own experience, what worked was those really small sustainable changes over time. So it really doesn't need to be more than just beginning with, a short walk, like whatever physically you're comfortable with. Maybe it's changing up, looking at what you have for breakfast and looking at, okay, well, can I shift this so that, yeah, I feel a little better if you're thinking it's not a choice that any longer aligns with, your health goals. But making small sustainable changes over time is key, and persisting, because we can't persist if we all go to the gym January 1st and suddenly you're eating nothing but lettuce and doing, 2 hours at the gym every day. Like it's not sustainable, because
No.
food is meant to be enjoyed. I absolutely believe, which is why I advocate moderation, I think, and balance. But yeah, and also recognizing it takes time. There's no quick fix. We're not going to have all of the weight off. If it's taken 2 or 3 decades to gain,
Yeah.
not going to lose it in 3 weeks at the gym.
Yeah.
So I think for people accepting that, okay, I'm going to slowly heal my relationship with food and my body, and it's going to take time. But I guarantee a year from now, I mean, typically, most people are going to be heavier or lighter. They're not going to be the same weight. And I had to start to think about that on my journey years ago. I thought, okay, I was tracking, I was going to be heavier. And I thought, okay, where do I want to be a year from now? And what kind of small changes can I begin to make that are realistic, and also, what feels good in the body? And yeah, because we will get carried away. I think just accepting that if it took a long time to gain, it's not healthy or realistic to drop it quickly. And I don't judge anyone else. I mean, people can make their own choices. I just share in my book and in conversations like this what worked for me. And I know that for myself now, it's those sustainable behaviors. I do believe that finding something you love in terms of physical movement is really important. I mean, some people love the gym.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's great if they do. I mean, it wasn't my thing. So figuring out what you love and doing it, for some people it might be salsa dancing, or it's yoga, or, or it might be maybe they start running. I mean, running's not my thing, but I just had to figure out, okay, this is what I really love to do, and just making sure I fit it into my week realistically.
Yeah.
I'm not committing to 2 hours of exercise a day or anything ridiculous, because that's just,
It's not going to
time.
happen. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. So it's just got to be realistic, and just something that I think we enjoy. I think that's really important. If someone gets to January and wants to make changes, like, yeah, what's actually fun?
Yeah.
Maybe they try a new sport and figure out they love pickleball. It's whatever works.
There was a lot of good points there, because I think it's, in general, moderation, but picking one thing instead of 50,
Yeah.
it's never an all or nothing. You're not going to win it by doing an all or nothing. So I think all that feedback you just gave us some really good tips. So I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
I love to end by asking, if you could only leave one message, if the listener was only going to listen to this one little segment, what would the one message be?
Oh, it would have to be kind to everyone. Doesn't matter whether someone's in a large or small body, it's none of your business. And you don't have the right to make them feel like crap and shame them. We have no right to judge another human. And that's, I think that is core. They need people to just see the human, see the soul. Like I don't like being judged, and I don't like having privileges now because people judge me in a positive light because of my external form. I'm the same girl I was 20 years ago in a much larger body,
Yeah.
and that hasn't changed. I mean, I'm more confident and less, don't have an anxiety disorder anymore. But yeah, we forget to see the soul, see the human within.
The world needs a lot more kindness. So I love that message. So, well, where can people find you and all the fabulous work you're doing?
Oh, thank you very much for asking. So yeah, they can go so here's my book. It's I'm wearing pink, of course, because it's kind of my theme right now. So if they go to JaneMcGuinnessTheAuthor.com, all of the links are there. They can find the book, the audiobook and ebook. And yeah, they can read a little bit more about what I'm about. My Substack is All Things Moderation, for your listeners who may be interested in have a Substack. Be interested in that.
I'll put your links out there as well, but hold that book up again, because for those that are not going to be seeing this, I just want to describe, it's got the most beautiful pink cover and I think a lovely piece of cheesecake. It has a very lovely piece of cheesecake on it. So interesting book cover, but it's a very pretty book cover.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Well, thank you so much again for talking with me today. It's been my pleasure.
Oh, and mine too. Just really lovely. Thank you so much, Marianne, for having me on the show.
Of course.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode of Message in the Middle. I hope you found something in this conversation that reminded you that you're not alone and that midlife isn't about winding down. It's about waking up. You're not done. You're just becoming. If this episode speaks to you at all, please share it with a friend who needs to hear it. And if you're enjoying the show, I'd be so grateful if you could take a moment to leave a review. It really helps other women find this community and this podcast. Until next time, take care of yourself.